A troop of baboons just directed a cheetah toward hidden prey using coordinated alarm calls and positioning, then shared the kill. If you think that sounds impossible, you're right to be skeptical, because what happened in Kenya's Masai Mara in 2024 contradicts a century of wildlife research and changes everything we thought we understood about interspecies cooperation. This is the story of how desperation created the most unlikely hunting partnership ever documented in the wild, and it starts with a problem that threatened to collapse an entire ecosystem. Everyone knows baboons and cheetahs are enemies. Baboons kill cheetah cubs whenever they find them. Cheetahs avoid baboon troops because the aggressive primates mob and attack predators. They occupy the same territories but exist in constant conflict. That's the established science. That's what every field guide, every documentary, every research paper confirms. Predators and prey don't collaborate. They compete. End of story. But Dr. Rachel Foster, a behavioral ecologist who'd spent 12 years studying Masai Mara predator dynamics, was about to watch that certainty shatter in real time. It began with an ecological crisis. A bacterial outbreak in the Mara River had contaminated water sources across 60 square miles. Impala, gazelle, and other small antelope populations crashed by 70% in 3 months. The herbivores that survived became hypervigilant, changing their grazing patterns, avoiding open areas, clustering in defensive groups that made hunting nearly impossible. For the Mara's cheetah population, this was catastrophic. Cheetahs are specialist hunters. They need open terrain, isolated prey, specific conditions for their high-speed chases. When prey adapts and changes behavior, cheetahs starve. Rachel documented 9 cheetah deaths from starvation in 6 weeks. The survivors were desperate, taking insane risks, hunting in broad daylight in areas they'd normally avoid. The baboons were struggling too, but differently. Olive baboons are omnivores with flexible diets, but the drought conditions accompanying the water crisis meant their normal food sources, fruits, insects, vegetation, had largely disappeared. They needed protein. They needed meat. But baboons aren't efficient hunters of large prey. They can catch small animals, but bringing down an antelope requires coordination and speed they simply don't possess. Rachel was monitoring a cheetah she'd named Swift, a 6-year-old male, severely underweight, who hadn't successfully hunted in 11 days. She watched him attempt to stalk on a small group of Thompson's gazelles, but they spotted him at 200 yards and scattered before he could even begin his chase. That's when the baboons appeared. A troop of about 30 olive baboons, including a large dominant male the research team called Titan, had been paralleling Swift's movements for over an hour. Rachel assumed they were monitoring the cheetah as a threat, staying aware of the predator's location to protect their young. Standard behavior. But what happened next was anything but standard. The baboons spread out in a coordinated formation Rachel had never seen before. They positioned themselves in a wide arc, with Titan at the center elevated position on a termite mound. Then Titan made a specific vocalization, not an alarm call, not a threat display, but something else, a rhythmic barking pattern Rachel didn't recognize from 12 years of baboon research. Swift stopped. He looked directly at Titan, and here's where it gets strange. The cheetah didn't run, didn't show defensive posture. He waited, like he was listening. 3 baboons on the left flank of the formation began moving forward, making noise, deliberately visible. They were driving something. Within minutes, Rachel saw what? A small group of 4 Thompson's gazelles that had been hidden in a depression, invisible from Swift's position, but visible from the baboons' elevated vantage points. The baboons pushed the gazelles toward open ground, directly into Swift's optimal hunting zone. Swift watched the baboons' movements, tracked the gazelles being driven toward him, and positioned himself accordingly. When the gazelles broke into open terrain, spooked by the baboons' coordinated advance, Swift launched his attack from perfect positioning. He was running at full speed before the prey even knew he was there. The hunt lasted 18 seconds. Swift brought down a young gazelle, killing it with his signature throat bite. A successful hunt he couldn't have made without knowing exactly where the prey was hidden. Here's where conventional wisdom says the baboons would either flee the successful predator or try to mob him and steal the kill. That's what baboons do around predators with food. That's the established behavior. Instead, Titan and two other large males approached Swift slowly, making submissive vocalizations. Swift didn't defend his kill aggressively. He fed for several minutes, consuming the vital organs and prime meat. Then, and Rachel had to review her footage multiple times to believe what she was seeing, he walked away from the carcass. The baboons moved in and fed what was remaining, not scavenging after the cheetah abandoned it, but feeding while Swift rested 30 yards away, watching but not intervening. For 20 minutes, the baboons consumed meat and organs, with juveniles and females being allowed to feed alongside the males. Then the troop moved on, and Swift returned to cache what little remained. Rachel radioed her research partner, Dr. James Kipcareer, certain she'd misinterpreted what she'd witnessed. But when she described the behavior, the coordinated baboon formation, the specific vocalizations, the directed prey movement, the shared feeding, James went quiet. He'd observed something similar 2 days earlier with a different cheetah and different baboon troop, but assumed it was random chance or misidentification. Over the next 6 weeks, Rachel documented this cooperative hunting behavior 17 times across 3 different cheetah-baboon pairings. The pattern was consistent. Baboons would locate hidden prey using their superior vantage points and numbers, direct the prey toward the cheetah using coordinated movements and vocalizations. The cheetah would make the kill, and both species would share the resource. The success rate was staggering. Swift's solo hunting success had been around 12% before the collaboration. With baboon assistance, it jumped to 63%. The baboons gained access to protein sources they couldn't obtain alone. Both species were solving their survival crisis through cooperation that shouldn't exist. Dr. Rachel brought in specialists from 3 universities to verify her findings. The consensus was unanimous and shocking. They were witnessing active interspecies cooperation between a predator and a species that traditionally kills that predator's offspring. Not mutualism like oxpeckers on buffalo, not commensalism like jackals following lions. This was coordinated, strategic collaboration with shared intent and mutual benefit. Here's the contrarian insight that emerged. We've defined interspecies relationships too rigidly. We assume predator-prey dynamics are fixed, that natural enemies can't become allies, that cooperation only happens in narrow evolutionary frameworks. But what Rachel documented proves that animal intelligence and adaptability far exceed our models. Under extreme pressure, species can form partnerships that would be impossible under normal conditions. The bacterial outbreak eventually resolved, antelope populations began recovering, and almost immediately the cheetah-baboon cooperation stopped. Within 2 weeks of prey returning to normal abundance and behavior, every documented partnership dissolved. The baboons went back to being territorial and aggressive toward cheetahs. The cheetahs returned to avoiding baboon troops. But Rachel's cameras caught one final encounter that suggests something profound. Swift encountered Titan's troop 3 months after the collaboration ended. The baboons had a juvenile near Swift's position, normally a scenario where baboons would mob attack the cheetah to protect their young. Instead, Titan made a specific barking vocalization, the same coordinating call from the hunts, and the troop simply moved away calmly. Swift watched them go and didn't follow. No aggression, no threat, just acknowledgement. The conventional belief says animals are locked into evolutionary roles defined by millions of years of adaptation, but Swift and Titan proved that intelligence, memory, and adaptability can override those scripts when survival demands it. They formed an alliance that shouldn't exist, solved problems neither could solve alone, then returned to being natural enemies when circumstances changed. The Masai-Mara partnership lasted only 2 months, but it expanded the boundaries of what we believe is possible in animal cognition and cooperation. If this story changed how you see the flexibility of nature, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible wildlife discoveries that prove the natural world is far more intelligent and adaptable than we ever imagined.